and really want to get feedback because there's quite a few different ways that we can skin this cat, and solve it and create a really great space that everybody has good feedback and input on. So this is the existing site. Just put it there as my cover. I wanted to share kind of the existing pieces and components that are on the site, some of them that will remain and be sacred, and some of them that are going to be adjusted. This is obviously the existing community center, which certainly will be readdressed and repurposed, if you will, in a new one. But we also have things like the public art piece that's a part of the banyan tree that's in the middle, or the ficus. We also have the clock tower and the Veterans Memorial. We also have the fountain that's part of our space. And then we obviously have a mix of open spaces, and then the great waterfront, which obviously is going to go nowhere, and we're going to embrace it much more gracefully than it is today. So this is reiterating all of those pieces and components of the site. Today this is our triangular site. And basically what's really unique about this site is that we have, 3 frontages, if you will, on street frontages, and we also have the waterfront frontage. But we also have a semi-major thoroughfare coming through our site, being Griffing Boulevard, that kind of bisects the experience of the park. And we kind of today have a very soft side of the park and a more active side of the park. And the more active side of the park today is buffered by some trees and landscaping, many of which are not specimen trees and many of them which are invasive trees. So once we did our tree inventory, we know that we're going to spend a little bit of time cleaning this edge up and getting the not so attractive stuff and not desired pieces cleaned out so that we can actually appreciate and use that water frontage much more gracefully. We also know that we have the J.C.'s Hall and the Knights of Columbus, who have been their tenant for a while, here at the very southern point, which is really at the intersection of 123rd and Griffing Boulevard. We have a parking field that is used by the Knights, the J.C.'s and the Knights, and also by the community center. And then there's a boat ramp that's part of that scenario that can be used by the public with key access to be able to drop a boat should the need arise. We also have shuffleboard courts that exist today that are underutilized, to say the least, and haven't really been active in some time. We have the Griffin Community Center here. We also have a garden that was brought in, the Garden of Hope, that is part of today's layout. And then there is additional parking at the north end. And then on the softer side of the park, this green circle shows you where the tree, the public art with the lighting on it is here on this large tree that's part of our project. And then we've got the restroom and covered pavilion that's part of the site, and then the tower and the fountain component. So I just wanted to kind of, if folks aren't familiar with the site, get your bearings as far as what we have there today. Currently, this project, or the facility for the community center, has as part of its programs some senior programs and some children's programs, but certainly is limited by the space that they have. So from a program standpoint, we already have some Pilates and body sculpting and yoga classes that are for the adult and senior programs, and more during the mornings at the facility. And because we're kind of limited to one space, then the afternoon switches over. The active adult programs that are also there is crocheting, painting, quilting, and jewelry making today as far as their usage of the facility. And again, because of space limitations, the adult programs really exist between 8 and 1 o'clock, and then the kids show up in the afternoon. The youth programs that are there are about after school care, tutoring. There's a lunch and snack program that operates out of the facility. And it's kind of limited as far as what it does. What we'd like to do is, this is more proposed programs that came out of it, is provide a summer camp program out of this facility. Obviously, because of the types of amenities we've talked about and trying to keep this park a very neighborhood friendly, passive park, no fields, no heavy courts, no lights, none of that stuff. We anticipate that the summer program that would be there would be more about arts and programs and smaller, soft based little activities and keeping folks busy in art programs, and then maybe field trips going out of there. The other thing that we thought about is, in addition to the tutoring that goes on there, was looking into creating a STEM or robotics or in a computer room that the students could come after school and really use to the best of their advantages to continue their learning process through the afternoons. We also are proposing a true fitness and exercise room as part of this, and a open space for the Tai Chi, the dance, additional programs beyond the yoga and Pilates that they have today. And then in really enhancing the arts and crafts room, we know there's a tremendous quilting program that exists there today. And those ladies do a wonderful job, but when they're there, they've got to really literally bring up most of their stuff, pack it up every time they come and go. Storage is pretty limited. So really, for arts and crafts, kind of having a dedicated space that comes with not only the work surfaces that are necessary to do the quilting, but can double for different arts and painting, different activities, even sewing, to really add layers of service and amenities for the community. In addition to this, we've talked about adding a demonstration kitchen that could be part of the catering kitchen for a multi-purpose room, but it allows for programs for youth, for seniors, what could be healthy cooking, it could be just learning about ratios and how to mix things and make things and create. But we felt it would be an interesting way to bring not only the community, and maybe different restaurants could come and host events and educational programs and more playful and fun things, wine tastings, those kind of things could work out of here. This is the proposed multi-purpose rooms. The idea of these is that we would have a series of rooms that could be smaller and broken down with folding walls and partitions into smaller spaces, and or opened up into larger spaces so that we can accommodate meetings of 20 people up to 200 people, and have a stage area, and then the catering kitchen maybe adjacent to it, so that we can serve the community in many, many ways, whether it's an HOA meeting, whether it's a celebration that a family may have, a wedding, a baby shower, reunion, those type of things. It's going to give you guys a lot of flexibility to have a larger space and or a small intimate setting for something that might be smaller, maybe a meeting or a training session. So at the end of the day, when we walked through and did all the building program, I apologize, the individual pieces are small in details, but we know that there's going to be a kind of a welcome center and an administration area. So that's going to be your front public lobby. There will be, stairs and or elevator cores that go into that space, public restrooms, office spaces for administrative staff, because obviously the facility you have today is rather small, so the presence of staffing is minimal. We'll be able to, because of the programming opportunities we'll have here, have somebody to meet you, to greet you, to provide you direction, but also have programming staff that could be on site. So that's plus or minus 3,700 square feet. Then we've identified in blue, which is the active adult areas, dedicated spaces for them, so that we no longer have that challenge of active adults here in the morning, kids here in the afternoons and into the evenings. This would allow us to kind of have that crossover, so programs could occur at different hours during the course of the day for the active adults, and likewise in the summertime that would allow youth programs to occur simultaneously in the morning, so they're not always jockeying for space. The senior spaces would again have the more passive space, which would be the kind of the open area for the yoga, the Pilates, the Tai Chi, dance, those types of programs, and then have the more static space, which is the arts and crafts program, with all the right tables, storage, even plumbing, so we can wash brushes and all those kind of things as part of their space. And their space is plus or minus 3,900 square feet. The youth area is also a series of spaces that include the let me read this a little bit tighter here, sorry about that. Youth programs that having just really some nice multi-purpose spaces. We'll have the STEM lab, the culinary lab, a computer lab as part of their programs, and they're plus or minus 6,360 square feet. Then we'll also have a fitness and gym program. So that would be more of your equipment-based working out areas, and maybe some machines that people can walk the treadmill, do a Stairmaster, or ride a bike. And then have some TVs that kind of support that and kind of make it a great communal space. Then we'll also, so that would be plus or minus 3,300 square feet. Then we'll have a multi-purpose space, and that's more of our banquet type and our event-based type of spaces. And that would give us the flexibility to, again, like 200 people. And then there'd be a pre-function space for cocktail hour in advance of it. That could be, we're dedicating as kind of an outdoor space so that it could be a balcony that overlooks the park or overlooks the water space, to kind of have that flow in and out. So on a great day like today, what a lovely day it would be to have an event outdoors, but covered from the elements. So that space is plus or minus 12,000 square feet. That gives us all the flexibility to have those multiple small events and the one large big event. And then we also sat with the JCs and the Knights of Columbus Hall members just to understand their programs, because obviously they are currently on the site, and we want to make sure that we take them into account and their needs, which is primarily a meeting space for them, a small kitchen, restrooms, and a small session area, sorry, that they basically would have 2,300 square feet as part of their dedicated space. That totals to about just over 31,000 square feet, which is a large footprint if we did it on one floor. Both solutions that we're going to look at, or three solutions we're going to look at, anticipate that this would be a two-story solution. That would allow us potentially to put the youth and the adult programs on one level, and the more in and out of the buildings on a day-to-day basis could occur on the first floor, and potentially the multi-purpose spaces could go up on a second floor and be more of a destination sense of arrival for when you have the dedicated booked spaces. Just some imagery of things that came out of the dialogues with the community in the past, as far as things that they really wanted to see on the site itself. Really, we heard over and over, let's activate that water's edge and create, a walkway system along it, and a colonnade, if you will. And then also let that walkway continue around the whole triangular site. So you end up with kind of a circuit, if you will, and a length of walking that you can say, I want to do 1 lap, 2 laps, or, feeling energetic, run 10 laps. That way you kind of have a target in mind as far as length and distance. The other topic related to the water frontage is that how can we activate that waterway a little bit more gracefully and energetically, and could the boat launch not just be for boats and the individual users, but could we have kayaks and paddle boards and youth programs and allow people to be able to kind of access that waterway through there and really engage even in learning programs about ecological and water resources. We talked about adding a playground to the site. This would be multi-age and ADA compliant. So that means that that would cover the little toddlers, which typically in playground world means kids from 2 to 5 years old. And those are more things of smaller height, a little bit less on the volume and the hanging and the swinging, but more on the sliding and the climbing up and scooting through different obstacles. And then from there, the larger setup would be from 5 to 12 is how they typically size them when it comes to playground world and how they do it. And then they do make specific components, and we can get down to that granular detail when we start making decisions that meet ADA compliance, so that anybody of any ability can be able to use them. And they make great spinners that transfer from a wheelchair to allow folks to use it, different swings that accommodate ADA compliance. So we can take a look at all the pieces and parts to make sure we can really address everyone in the community. Outdoor fitness equipment, we talked about this as an option, allowing the walkway system, having a setup where you could actually do your workout outdoors and get a little bit more of a detailed group. What we see is in the past, People always thought of these as like a park course where they were sprinkled along the trail, but more and more when we're working with different municipalities, we end up clustering them together because you may get like a boot camp group, a group of ladies that want to do something and get together and kind of rotate, almost that Orange Theory aspect where you kind of really engage as a group. Still allows you to work out individually if you want to, but it allows for a little bit more of a group dynamic and could be a fixed program that's part of the center. We also heard that we wanted to look at small performance, maybe movie, space. We know that movies occur today on the campus at times, not during COVID, obviously, but in the past there was movie nights and people really enjoyed it. And it's really creating just a proper venue for allowing that type of thing to happen. We're not talking, major promotions and big blaring lights. We're talking smaller productions, a jazz band, small little ensemble, maybe a little play, those type of things that could happen, a poetry reading, but something softer so that it's, appropriate for the scale of the park and knowing that it's within the residential community. And then still keeping some of the qualities that people like about the park today the most, which is it has picnic areas and just really is an open park. And it can become whatever you want it to be at any given day. A little pickup game of kickball, a little kicking the soccer ball around, but not a true soccer field or game. And just picnic tables and kind of keeping it as, soft and as gentle as that park is today in many ways. One concept that we also have talked about is it's a Dutch term called a woonerf, which sometimes I feel like I'm teaching everybody a new word, but we are looking at this as an option no matter which option gets decided as far as where the building's placed and where all the components are placed as a solution to help us address the traffic that goes through Griffing. We all know that Griffing is highly traveled and often used as a shortcut type of access way. And we think it's important because if we're going to try to connect the triangle piece with the water's edge piece, we need to make sure that people understand that they are connected visually, that you should slow down while you're passing through, because obviously at some points we're going to be having to cross, whether it be from a parking lot to the building, whether it be, the playground to the water's edge. There are great design things that come out of the kind of woonerf concept that help you slow the traffic down. And it's strictly by visual cues that tell you it's a little different than a regular street. A regular street, we all know, is asphalt. It's got a curb and a gutter and then the sidewalk, and there's level changes, and it's very structured. And, when we on a street, we know it's a street. With a woonerf, what they do is kind of drop the curve, keep it level, change textures, change architectural components, whether it's benches and landscape elements, and it becomes something that almost makes you pause because you start to think, what is this? And it could be a space that could with the proper MOT, could be closed off. So I know that today Griffing Park serves for when they do the parade, that's kind of the staging area. We could shut that street down for a day and allow this to be an open air kind of experience. And maybe, other times the tents are set up and it's an arts and crafts festival and we, work on rerouting the traffic, but it becomes that great visual cue that says, hey, these two sides are connected. Hey, this is something special. We're going to slow things down, and it becomes almost a little passive streetscape. By day, regular operations, cars will go up and down it. It's almost no different. It's a little bit of an extreme example, but the Performing Arts Center down on Biscayne Boulevard. Now, that building, those two buildings straddle Biscayne Boulevard, but by knowing that the pavers exist on this side, the planters look similar, the light fixtures are similar, all of a sudden, and how they worked with the paving on the street itself, you know that they are connected. And it always makes you stop and look to either side because it's part of a bigger picture. So the woonerf is something that we really would like to entertain as an option and work closely with the right agencies to create that softness to help connect the two pieces of the puzzle. So now we're going to dive in a little bit. So these are the things that we really wanted to get community feedback on as far as placement of pieces and parts, because we've created kind of this list of things, and I'm going to walk you through it a little bit. Obviously, this is today's triangular site, and this is today's waterfront site. And again, I mentioned to you that no matter which option, we are going to, you see this yellow dashed line, is really have a walking path, walking trail around the entire perimeter to create that loop with great distance, and have it be able to be traversed and traveled around and around at your leisure. In this particular one, that scheme, which is option A, we're showing the building being kind of at the southern end, if you will. Today, basically, this is where the Griffing Center is today, and this is where the Knights of Columbus are, and the JC Hall is today. And that basically covers where the shuffleboard courts are and the parking lot is today. So in essence, this building could remain. Obviously, their parking would be challenged during construction. This building would be a little harder to remain. We'd have to find some alternate positions for the activities that will occur there once we can convene and assemble, that are kind of in this area. And so we would probably need to find a space for the community center to operate. And then basically we would create parking along the water's edge. This would allow us to kind of be able to pull into this parking lot. The NOMI bus could pull up straight to the community center, pick folks up, back out onto the road. These yellow dashed lines are what I'm talking about being the lunar, is for creating that intentional change in texture, in concept, patterns, light fixtures, benches that really make that special. We would have some parking intermingled along, parallel parking along the streetscape. We would create kind of a lawn experience that would start to connect us to the Northeast 4th Avenue. Today, honestly, when we look at the site maps, if you will, this is actually was a right-of-way. And the intention at some point was that this was kind of a parcel, and these were a couple little parcels, and this was almost like an alleyway or an intended street. So we thought it might be interesting to not have it be a physical street for cars and stuff, but a street that is actually a pedestrian street, and kind of continue that through and then loop it directly to 4th like the original plans kind of indicate that it would be. P would be a playground that kind of nestles around our big tree with the big public art. And then R is we would allow the clock tower, and in all of these schemes, the clock tower and the water fountain remain exactly where they are. And then we would have the public kind of picnic area and the open play area kind of nestled within the looser trees that are at the northeast area. And then the amphitheater would kind of cradle in the position where that bathroom building is today, and the covered pavilion. So that is kind of the gist of option A, as far as where the pieces and the components could or should go. The only thing that I didn't mention is that the boat ramp would actually be repositioned down to this end. That way the activity of people with their cars, whether they've got a trailer or if they've got trying to get their kayak off the rooftop, it's kind of a little bit off of the distance. So if you have an event or a party or a program going on, they're not on top of one another, and allows that to occur a little bit more separately and a little bit more privately. Option B, again, all the same pieces and parts, but oh, and then I forgot to mention, back up. The other component is that if the JC's hall, we could place it here. It gives you a nice little buffer as far as the spaces. They can use the parking field that can be shared. We could tree line it so that the residents adjacent to us, it's a softer transition. We're pushing kind of the more active side of things away from the residential, and kind of allows that to step down. This will be a single-story solution, no bigger than a house. So we felt like it was a nicer step down into the residential community, allows them to have their own presence on the street side. So, and honestly, in every solution, we're considering having the JC's hall be kind of in that niche. They're keep their kind of water frontage. It's just at a different position, allows them to have their own space, and allows it to be a buffer to the residential community. Okay, so option B, the things that are different from what I shared with you before is that we've changed the building position, and that's the primary piece. And the building position is actually now in the position where I talked about having that original kind of roadscape that is part of the plat. And we build a two-story solution that actually kind of follows that curve and allows for that softness to exist and kind of creates, you know, a beautiful open field in the front with the pieces and parts that we really already have, the public art, the clock tower, the fountain, and kind of that open area can continue there. We can put picnic benches and the kind of runaround spaces and part of it and kind of engage it as the soft side. And then we could allow it to be the cradle for the performing arts space, amphitheater space, and allow like balconies that could look out to that program. So we'd end up with seating in the lawn to allow for performance, and people could be up at the building looking at a performance or a movie, and kind of let the building be part of the engagement of that experience rather than a separate entity. Again, we feel confident that we'd like to do this wound earth thing, the concept to allow for softening of the street and also creating that connection from one side to the other. We would create a drop-off loop here for the buses, the Nomi Express. We have a small restroom building here that could serve for the playground and a picnic area that's on the water's edge. And then parking, the boat ramp, and the JCs would be part of that vocabulary. We felt it was a kind of an interesting solution to consider because it allows you to still have views from to the water frontage without blocking the water frontage. So, and then allowing this cradle to occur to have the amphitheater kind of part of the entire experience, and then connect the pieces and the parts together, and allow, you know, this playground to be a piece that is kind of iconic and playful and fun as you enter the city. Option C positions the building on the triangular piece. Again, we will create the connectivities one side to the other, and we place the picnic areas and the open play areas immediately adjacent to it. We would put the playground kind of at the point, if you will, of 123rd and Dixie, or 6th Avenue, excuse me, and allow that to be a little bit more passive. We can have views out of the building, kind of looking at the playground, views out of the building, looking at this kind of nestled within that large tree, and then place the amphitheater piece at the point at the end. What's nice about options, or what's, you know, pros and cons of options B and C, is that they really do allow the building, the community center, to operate as it is for now while they build the building. During the course of the construction, you know, the building component takes much longer than addressing the site component. So parking lot takes a lot less time than the building. So we could keep that program running and then build the parking lot out at the end. So both of these kind of allow both the JC Hall and the community center to stay active for as long as we possibly can, and then transition them into their individual buildings and then finish this component. So it almost be a phased development. So option B and C allow for that to happen a little bit more easily, a little bit of a smoother transition without finding temporary positions. So the amphitheater would end up being kind of at this point. We'd have a restroom building so that if you did have an event, we'd have the Nomi Express would come through. We'd change its position and kind of have a drop off here at this side of the building. But again, kind of create that connectivity from side to side. Parking, most of it will all be on this site to help. We are planning on parallel along the edges of 123rd, along Griffing, not obviously on this road because too many buses and too much traffic are going on, but allowing that to occur. So that is option C. And I think with that, I'm at the end of the presentation of what we wanted to share and kind of get folks' feedback on.
Okay.
And I'd like to open it up to any questions.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Meryl. Again, this is Rasha. I'm your moderator for tonight. I know some of you arrived a little bit late. This is being recorded, so if you missed the beginning part and so on and so forth, the recording will be available on the CRA website as of tomorrow. One of the things that Meryl did not mention is after this, we do have a survey at SurveyMonkey where we show the different layouts. I'm going to put the link on in the chat section for everyone. So hopefully tonight, at least you guys can do that, but it'll be on the CRA website as of tomorrow morning. And we're going to also put out an e-blast. Now I know you have some questions, so I want to okay. So Sarah McDevitt, can you, and Carmela Furman. So Sarah McDevitt, can you unmute yourself, por favor?
Yeah, so I love that you guys came up with 3 options. It's super nice to see different ideas around the site. And I have one that I think is super creative and is a favorite, but my question specifically around C was how come it appears that there's so much more asphalt and parking along the water in that particular option compared to the other 2?
You're muted, Meryl.
Sorry about that. It is a little bit more asphalt, and that's strictly by the function of we really had the space left to do it. When by moving the picnic area and the playground to this side, we ended up with just really the amphitheater component and the JC Knights Hall at the other end, and we had more to be able to park. Doesn't necessarily have to be. We haven't gotten to the point. This is more of a bubble diagram. Once we really start to lay the building out and calculating how much parking we need for, the building, the JCs, we'll get the exact calculations, but this is kind of a glorified bubble diagram, just more about placement.
Ms. Furman?
Hello. Oh, yeah, got it. Thanks. I wanted to comment on option A, because I kind of think that may be one of the better options that I've seen so far. But I was wondering if you had mentioned the Wolfenfer design. Is that something? Yeah, Woodner. Is that something that could be spread further out into the area? Like, would that be further by that? In this one, for example, would it be able to be by the JCC building? Because I would imagine people may cross there. Would it be in other parts so that you actually slow down the entire triangle area from people eating through there, which happens quite often?
Right. We'll take a look at it. Ultimately, it becomes a function of, the money spent to do so, right? So we're going to be able to really be mindful of the dollar side of it. But you're right. It doesn't mean that it's mutually exclusive to this area at this point. It could be a cross connection here that looks at it, and a cross connection there. But it may not be the full length, because obviously when you start to change textures, pavers are more expensive than asphalt. When concrete's more expensive than asphalt too. So we'll try to incorporate all those concepts while being mindful of the dollar sign as well.
Yeah, overall A and was it A and the one with the building in the park? Those were pretty good options. I would think if the building's going to be in B, then I think the design of the building is going to really matter, because it's kind of like at the center of the park.
Right. And there's something nice about, the idea of having a curved form, and a series of colonnades. So it's something we thought was interesting to explore.
Would cost then come into effect when you're talking about building something like this, as opposed to just like a rectangular building?
You know what? We already know that no matter which solution, it's going to be a 2-story solution, which requires the same amount of elevators, stairs, means of egress. It is a little bit more complicated, and again, that to build a curved shape than a rectilinear shape. But it's not to say that it couldn't end up being a series of fragments that make it a curved shape. to kind of help mitigate that a little bit.
And I guess my final question is, will there be another workshop or meeting to discuss what the building will look like and things like
Yeah.
that?
So
Yes.
let me answer that question. So right
Perfect.
now we're at the phase where we needed to know what exactly, the community needed in that building. So in terms of programming, the size, so it went from that small little building to now a 2-story, 31,000 square foot. So we know what the need is.
Yeah.
So after we've gotten enough responses from the community, that's why we did the survey, and I put the link on the chat section. So I'd appreciate it if you can, click on it after the
Yes.
meeting at least. And we're gonna, post it. We're leaving it open till December 30th, 31st, so we can get as much as we can. Then we bring those options to the CRA board with, this is what the feedback we got from the community, and for them to decide which one. Then Meryl, the phase 2 of it is now she's gonna come back with, I'm gonna start designing it based on which options the community and the board chose. And that's when we're gonna start having other conversations, community input, because now she's going to get into the intricacies, the detail, and so on and so forth. But right now what we need from you is the bigger picture idea. Do you like where the building is? Do you like the playground, the amphitheater? A point of privilege, please, Meryl. I see a lot of green stuff. Where can my son fish on the canal?
Oh, well,
Okay, you're gonna have to take the boat dock a little bit wider.
Yeah, no, and we'll look at those details. It's just more of a holding spot, but
Yeah.
the boat dock could be
I'll
there,
make
but
sure.
honestly, we're talking about having a walkway along the water's edge. So
Yeah.
technically he
Sure.
could fish along this whole edge if you want.
Perfect. Sarah had another question, if you can unmute yourself.
There we go. Sorry. I just wanted to say I really love the creativity of option B and the idea of the building sort of being a connector. Something like, big overhangs that allow public, if it's a rainy day or a really hot day, to still enjoy whatever's going on in the amphitheater with some protection from the building, or, creating a walkway that's even covered to the park and other things.
Right.
I mean, that could be really cool. I just worry a little bit about it being sort of massive in the middle of that space. But if there's lots of glass or anything, it could be amazing. And I do appreciate very much Rasha's comment about, making sure we have water access, because that to me was one of the big priorities for this project, is getting people aware that we have water there and that it's everyone's right to access that water and to enjoy that water here in the middle of our city. And, so like trying to figure out, I do feel a bit worried with all the parking, and I just want to make sure that the water is emphasized. And that's another reason why I like the building moved away from the water some, so that the water's opened up to the public.
Right. I mean, that's part of why we're exploring all the different options and really want to get everyone's feedback. Is, honestly, my personal initial reaction was to put the building where you see it in A. But, there is also that thought of, well, it blocks the water, right? If I'm driving here, you're not going to know that this is even waterfront, where if this is a nice, beautifully landscaped parking area, you'll be able to see the water, right? Because we know today you don't see it, right? Literally, this is so dense that you cannot see that water's edge unless you're at the boat ramp or you're down at this very end. And we really, part of me said, I think we need to look at it a couple different ways, because certainly this allows for that whole water's edge to become really a formidable piece, and that you could actually connect to it in multiple ways, whether you're walking or biking or driving, and really be able to see it, because these are softer elements that won't block visually. So there's, again, I mentioned there's different ways to solve it, but it was really important to us to make sure that, we listened to everybody, and built consensus, and said, this is the clear direction we'd like to go. And again, these are bubble diagrams to a degree, but it really at least starts to give you guys a peek at how it could lay out and feel and what that means.
Ms. Furman had one last question, then Ms. Guri.
Thanks. I know that, I'm not sure how everyone would feel about this, or if this park will be dog friendly, and if so, will we be adding some kind of like waste receptacles for people who walk their dogs? Because I would imagine if we're going to have this really nice brand new park, people are going to want to walk and take their dogs, and picking up and throwing the poo away it's a challenge for
Yeah.
people in some parts of the city.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to have that. And I mean, I don't know how people feel about a dog park, but if there was a portion that was fenced in for people to kind of let their dogs loose, that would be nice as well. But that's
Yeah,
not priority.
Yeah, I don't think, in the feedback we got, we didn't necessarily hear, we want an official dog park, but I don't think there by any means, Rover and their owners can come and walk and enjoy the park. And yes, we would need to have, receptacles and bags so that folks can clean up after themselves. But I think it's a more passive experience rather than a true active dog park.
All right, Ms. Guri, can you unmute yourself?
Hi, good evening. First, I just want to congratulate you for presenting 3 viable options. I can really appreciate that. My question is, what is the construction budget for the project, if you have that, and how much of that is for the building itself, and how much of it is for the site improvements?
Rasha, do you want to take that or you want me to take it?
You can start and I'll finish.
Okay. What we've been told, and the CRA has dedicated $10 million to the project.
It's not the
And I'm,
CRA, let me correct you. I'm sorry. There's $10 million, but it's not solely the CRA. It's the city and the CRA. But yeah, the CRA will be responsible for the infrastructure, and that was part of this. The reason why we're involved in this is because the downtown concept master plan always had a connectivity with the Griffin Center to do the amphitheater, the green trail, the walking path, and so on, and to guide it as a connectivity to the downtown. So the CRA is paying for the architectural designs, the construction plans, and so on and so forth, and for the overall support and infrastructure of those elements. The building itself will be on the city side, and I've been talking to the city manager about it. And the building itself also, and when you're looking at the timeline, you're looking at a couple of years down the line. It could be that the CRA ends up paying for the full amount then, but we do have some other priority capital projects that we need to get started first. So as soon as those get started, then we can focus on the community center. But at this point, we're just getting the design done. Phase 2 of the overall design concept. Then to do the construction documents will take a while to get done, and the feedback. So in terms of the timeline, the community center will get done and everything else will get done.
Thank you.
Mr. or Miss Achon, I'm sorry, I don't mean to massacre your name. Would you like to speak? If not, the comment is, I like the plan options leading towards B, having the playground recreation area near the water. Will it be secured at the water's edge?
yes.
Good evening, everyone. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
We can.
Okay, I'm really excited about this project. It's been a long time coming, and it's good to see these options available for view for the residents. Are the plans including, what is it called again? ADA, Americans with Disabilities? Do
Yes.
you have ramps and, those sort of things to help those who have those challenges?
By code, we're required, especially because it's a public facility, to make sure that access to the building, whether it's coming from the parking lot or from the streetscape, walking or in your wheelchair, be able to get into the building. And once you're in the building, the reception desk will have an ADA compliant countertop so that folks can be met and greeted properly and be able to fill out a form easily. Bathrooms will all be ADA compliant. Everything, the entire facility and the park will need to meet the proper requirements. If we have a slope and it's going to be a soft slope and just a walkway, we can't exceed a 2% slope. If it's going to be a bigger one, then we need to meet all the ramp requirements, but we will, by nature of having a brand new building, we will address that.
Another question, as for lighting, adequate lighting for the parking area for the whole border of that runs along the water would be very important. And are you planning to use solar?
Okay, let me start with the lighting part of it. Yes, we'll be required to provide parking lot lighting that meets the minimum foot candle requirements so that it's from a safety standpoint, it's meeting the requirements, but not creating glare to our neighbors. So there's ways to design the light fixtures that have, you know, collars and lenses on them that push the light in different directions, right? So we're not going to pour water out, you know, pour light out onto the water frontage or to anybody in the residential area. We can very much focus that light to the parking lot itself and not what we call spill out into areas that we really don't want lighting to be at. Part of the game with that is, you know, we might end up with more shorter poles that give us a more intimate lighting setting than fewer larger poles that kind of bring the light higher and spreads further. So we'll take a look at that. As far as solar, we can explore it as an option for the lighting. I know that different municipalities I've worked with have had pilot programs and kind of had some mixed reviews on them as far as operations, maintenance, and how they're really working. They haven't been mastered fully. As far as the building, I'm a lead AP, which is a credential that says I know how to design green buildings. And we will obviously integrate any sustainable strategies that we can to the building and kind of balance the cost effectiveness of all of those solutions to do it. We can look at solar. Solar is a little tough if you want to try to power an entire building because you need a lot of surface area to have the amount of panels to generate the building. But we can look at, you know, whether the water heaters, you know, is heated by solar. We can look at site lighting to see if it's done by solar, but I don't think because of the park setting and the natural, we're really not going to have the surface area to really create full power for the building with panels.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mike, I didn't hear from you, Mike McDermott. Ms. Hill, I see you there, but I didn't hear from you. I haven't read any questions or comments. I see other residents on there, but I haven't gotten any questions or comments.
Yeah. Yeah, Rasha?
Yes.
Yeah. I was just wondering, is there going to be an option A or option B? The opportunity along the water's edge, is that going to be a walkway with benches and where people can? Hello?
Oh, definitely,
Yep.
yes.
Mike, either any of these three options, this experience along the water's edge will be a pathway with benches, with trash receptacles. You know, it'll be a nice pathway that you can really engage the waterscape.
Right. And I think also in A, on the second story, you might have some sort of glass where people can sit and look out, you know, over the canal. You know, be a nice view, a relaxing area for people.
Right. Honestly,
you know,
Mike, all the solutions are going to be 2 stories. So every solution would have that opportunity to be at a higher level, kind of looking at.
Yeah, I noticed on B with the second that you could actually do that. It's create some sort of, you know, along the edge facing the amphitheater. You could have all that in glass so people could actually sit indoors up on the second floor of the amphitheater and look out over the amphitheater. So, you know, there's a lot of great opportunities here to create you know, a real park event space that I think will really, really enhance Central City for sure.
Yeah, I think those are great comments, Mike. I just wanted to also mention that our Parks Director, Christine Carney, is there. She's listening to all your comments and suggestions. So please keep it coming. It's now 6:53. Unless you have any additional questions or comments as it relates to that, I just want to put in a couple of CRA plugs. One, again, like I said, I put the link, the survey link in the chat. Please complete it as fast as you can, and also please share it. It's going to be available till December 31st. It is going to be live on the CRA website under projects and initiatives for Griffin Center. We're gonna have an e-blast sending out to the community at large, but please share it with as many people as possible. Also, if there's additional questions or comments, even if it's not about the Griffin Center, it's about the CRA in general, please email me. I have my email address in the chat section as well. And we have other great opportunities coming our way that we're working on. I want to acknowledge not only Mike McDermott, the chair of the North Miami CRA Advisory Committee, but also one of our committee members, Sarah McDevitt, who's very active. Thank you very much. We are looking for new members. So if you're a resident or a business owner or a commercial property owner in the city, please, we have a shortage of members. So we have issues with quorum right now. So I would encourage you to consider participating on the CRA Advisory Committee. They meet every first Monday of the month. Because of COVID now, we're meeting virtually, so it's at 1 o'clock, but normally it's at 6:30 in the evening every first Monday of the month. And the Advisory Committee's input is extremely important because that's what the board uses as well when they decide on what projects to fund and things like that. If no one else has any questions, I'd like to conclude the meeting. Thank you all. Thank you, Councilwoman Estime Irvin. I'm sorry, I know you did the introduction, but did you have any final words you would like to say, Councilwoman?
No, not, well, I guess, yes, I do. Thank you again so much, Rasha, for putting this together. Thank you, Meryl, for the presentation. I want to thank all the residents that took out the time to comment and to attend this meeting. And please, I encourage you, like Rasha said, to complete the survey so that it can be a guide and help for us to make the appropriate decisions. Again, have a good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here.
And one last comment, I think I mentioned it before, but I always have to repeat it. This workshop was recorded, and as of tomorrow, we're going to have it also on our website. So if you have anybody who wants to see the full demonstration, not just look at the slides, the video will be made available to them so they can go through it as well. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy Hanukkah. If I don't see you or talk to you before the new year. Bye. Bye, Mike.
Bye. Be safe.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.